This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, and faith-focused feature stories with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
The heat is on. Good afternoon. Welcome aboard. The first real heat wave of summer arrives this week.
Our meteorologists are forecasting dangerous heat starting Tuesday through Friday, with Wednesday and Thursday expected to be the hottest days. In many parts of our state, that'll exceed over 100 degrees. New
York Governor Kathy Hochul says heat relief won't come till after the 4th of July holiday.
There's always concern about the stress on our energy grid. This is what keeps me up at night. Given the brief duration of this, we should be okay.
Experts advise staying out of the sun during the heat of the day as much as you can, and make sure you're staying hydrated as much as you can during this first official heat wave of summer. Big week for the Supreme Court. Justices wrapping up their summer term with major rulings. Today they ruled on whether states can accept mail-in ballots past Election Day. In a 5-4 decision, the justices said yes, they can. Legal analyst Jonathan Turley.
This is a significant loss for Republicans who have wanted to try to rein in the way that we do our elections. California, of course, is the nightmare where you can go for weeks without a decision.
Today's ruling upholds a Mississippi law that allowed for the counting of late arriving ballots. The death toll is nearing 1,500 now. From earthquake-wrecked Venezuela, NBC's Julio Vaquero.
We are entering the 5th day after the earthquakes, and the increasingly desperate search for survivors continues. The Venezuelan government talks about 800 buildings that have been damaged, 600 have completely collapsed, and 200 have partially collapsed. So the devastation is real in Venezuela. According to UNICEF, more than 1.8 million people are in desperate need of humanitarian help after the earthquake.
Still in the midst of the horror come stories of hope. Reporter Marcus Moore in Caracas has the latest on search and rescue operations.
They were able to save a man and his son who had been trapped under the rubble for several days. We also saw images of a woman who was rescued with her infant child. And so whenever there's a rescue, obviously, as you can imagine, it's a very emotional moment.
Still, about 50,000 people remain missing after last week's devastating twin earthquakes. The U.S. and Iran have agreed to stand down after weekend skirmishes that threatened to unravel a fragile peace deal. Reporter Keir Simmons.
The U.S. and Iran appear to have pressed pause after a weekend of escalating strikes.
Mike Waltz, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, has the following message for Iran.
They need to understand their leverage is diminishing by the day. Iran has a choice to make. It's going to be a responsible nation, or it can continue down this path to absolute ruin.
There's still a lot of uncertainty over who exactly is running the Strait of Hormuz, that strategic body of water where 80% of the world's oil passes through every day. ABC's Sila Wang.
Iran promised to reopen the strait. Instead, it's trying to control it. Iran's foreign minister now claiming Iran alone manages the strait, warning against any interference.
The U.S. and Iran are planning to hold a new round of peace talks tomorrow in Qatar. Iran struck ships with drones in the strait over the weekend and attacked our military bases in Bahrain and Kuwait. The U.S. retaliated by striking targets inside of Iran. 3 firefighters were killed over the weekend while battling a massive wildfire along the Utah-Colorado border.
There were several firefighters that were told that were trapped by the fire. They had no chance to escape. It was really difficult for them. And unfortunately, 3 of them were killed. 2 others were hurt when they were trying to battle that blaze. And also Governor Cox from Utah sharing that this is heartbreaking news, calling them 3 heroes that made the ultimate sacrifice to protect the lives and communities along the Utah-Colorado border.
That's ABC's Melissa Adon. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani is making news for saying this.
I think a Democratic Socialist can get elected anywhere across this country for any position.
Anywhere, anytime. The socialist mayor says Democratic socialism is alive and well after 3 of his candidates won Democratic primaries last week in New York City.
I think the direction that the party should go in is how best to fight for working people. I think we need to have a platform and a vision that doesn't sound as if it was cooked up by consultants, but instead one that you would say in response to someone who's asking, why can't I afford my rent?
Chloe Trapanado with the Daily Wire says Mamdani and those like him are attempting to normalize socialism.
This is coming, and it's coming fast, unfortunately, and the Democrats are not radical enough for the Democrat Socialists of America. All of the policies are anti-American, and unfortunately it's working because they're running in these super blue areas, playing out the playbook, and it's going to work unless we stop it.
The Democratic Socialists of America have grown from about 5,000 members a decade ago to over 100,000 today. A former NFL star is fighting for his life. Former Tennessee Titans running back Chris Johnson, one of just 9 players ever to run for 2,000 yards in a single season. He's been diagnosed with ALS.
I want people to know that I'm still me. ALS has changed what my body can do, but it hasn't changed who I am.
The disease has progressed so quickly that Johnson has lost his ability to speak. What you just heard there was the 40-year-old using a speech generation device, which makes use of recordings of his voice. Chris Johnson says a year ago he was picking up his daughter, and today he cannot. At Soccer's World Cup, they're into the knockout round, and Team Canada is moving on.
The round of 32 got started on Sunday with South Africa taking on Canada, the first time that either country had ever played a knockout round game. Maybe fittingly, they went into stoppage time scoreless, looking like we would need extra time. Instead, Stephen Eustáquio found the back of the net in the 92nd minute as Canada becomes the first country to advance to the round of 16.
Greg Thompson at Fox News says Team USA will play Bosnia-Herzegovina on Wednesday. They're playing tennis today at Wimbledon. The action underway at the All England Club outside London. American Serena Williams has come out of retirement to compete this year. Tennis analyst Patrick McEnroe wonders if the 7-time Wimbledon champ has enough gas in the tank to make a serious run.
Does she have the same power on the serve? She was known for the greatest serve in the history of women's tennis. And I think the most important thing, particularly early on in the tournament here, is the footwork and her ability to move on this surface, because that's always important for any player.
Williams, a 23-time Grand Slam champion, playing in her first singles event since the 2022 U.S. Open. Still to come on the Noon Report for Monday. Can the grid handle the heat? Budget deadline in Harrisburg, and keeping an eye on screen time this summer.
This is meteorologist Ken McKinley. Sunny and warm through the afternoon, well up in the 80s, maybe 90 in some spots. Some hot weather coming up as we go through the rest of this week. Forecast details are coming your way in about 10 minutes.
All right, thank you very much, Ken. Let's check the stories making news across New York and Pennsylvania. American pride is at an all-time low as America gets ready to celebrate her birthday, her 250th birthday.
1/3 of Americans say they're extremely proud of their country. That's the lowest number since Gallup started asking the question in 2001. 20% say they're very proud, 22% said moderately, 15% said only a little, 9% not at all. Extreme pride surged after 9/11 and has been slipping since 2004, particularly among women. 14% of Democrats, 28% of independents, and 70% of Republicans say they're extremely proud to be American. I'm Rory O'Neill.
Gas prices continue to drop. The price at the pump down more than a dime a gallon in New York the past week. That's still higher than the national average, which is $3.86 a gallon. In Pennsylvania, gas is averaging $4 a gallon right now. Air conditioners working overtime this week as the first heat wave of summer bakes the region. Wednesday through Friday will be the worst of it. New York Governor Kathy Hochul says the humidity, more so than the heat, is what concerns her.
And with the humidity, you're not able to develop a sweat, which usually cools the body down, which is why it becomes very dangerous.
The governor recommending the very young and the very old limit their time outside. Pennsylvania State Senator Gene Yaw is worried how the aging electric grid will respond to this stifling heat.
We have infrastructure issues. We build these things and then we haven't taken care of them. And it's the same way with power.
Yaw says the Commonwealth's aging infrastructure is in desperate need of a makeover, and that includes the electric grid.
We have more efficient refrigerators and stoves and everything like that. Well, now we've reached the point of the end of efficiency, and all these things are coming to bear, whether it's data centers or electric cars, and we're finding out our infrastructure is not built to carry it.
Energy experts recommend during the heat wave you close your windows and blinds in your home to keep things as cool as possible, especially if you lack air conditioning. The Pennsylvania state budget is due tomorrow, and for the 5th year in a row, lawmakers will not make the deadline. Last week, the state Senate approved the largest tax cut in Commonwealth history. It includes a 2-week sales tax holiday in August for school supplies and $25 million for school choice scholarships. A boost in the state's minimum wage and recreational marijuana are some of the major sticking points holding up this year's budget. With kids out of school for the summer, experts are advising moms and dads to keep an eye on their screen time. Dr. Mavash Modny with the American Academy of Pediatrics says the light from smartphones and tablets can cause real problems with sleep.
The blue screen and the content decreases your melatonin, and you're not able to fall asleep quickly, and then your quality of sleep decreases too.
The average 13 to 18-year-old in this country will spend nearly 9 hours a day staring at a screen. That's led to the first ever Surgeon General warning about screen time and children. A loose water bottle is the reason for last summer's fatal tour bus crash on the New York State Thruway in Pembroke. 5 passengers were killed, dozens more injured. The driver says the bottle got lodged under his foot and he lost control of the bus while attempting to throw it away. Pennsylvania senior U.S. Senator Dave McCormick says President Trump is right to press Congress to pass the Save America Act. That measure would require Americans show ID in order to vote.
It's so frustrating that a body of 100 can't get 60 to vote for something that's 80-20. So this is something that everybody I see in Pennsylvania wants. It shouldn't be a partisan issue, and we've got to get people to have confidence in our elections again.
President Trump canceled a bill signing ceremony last week on home affordability, saying he would not sign that bipartisan measure until Congress acted on the Save America Act. New York State Police have released the names of those involved in last week's fatal wrong-way crash on the Inner Loop in Rochester. Cops say 39-year-old Naomi Flores was driving in the wrong direction in the eastbound lane early Friday when her Honda SRV crashed head-on into a Ford Fusion. Both the driver and passenger in the Ford Fusion were killed, Charles Barnes and Quincy Battle, both just 21 years old. Fire broke out last night at a popular Pennsylvania hotel. Details from Family Life's Brian Query.
Firefighters responded to the Hotel Hershey in Hershey, Pennsylvania just after 6 p.m. Sunday, after a fire was reported in the hotel's West Tower. Hershey Entertainment and Resorts says the fire was quickly extinguished and the tower was evacuated as a precaution while crews completed their work. No injuries were reported, and guests were allowed back inside the building after it was cleared. Hotel officials praised the rapid response of the Hershey Fire Department and thanked guests for their patience. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you, Brian. Let's pause, switch gears, talk sports. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, the knockout stage of the World Cup has started, and you lose, you go home. The first game saw Canada win a thriller. The Canadians upset South Africa 1-0 on a goal scored 2 minutes into stoppage time at the end of the game. What a way to kick off the World Cup knockout stage. 3 more matches will be played today. Now to baseball. The Red Sox completed their sweep of the Yankees in dramatic fashion. Sonny Gray took a no-no into the 8th inning, but New York scored twice in the 9th to tie the game up. Then the Yankees scored 2 in the 10th to grab a 4-2 lead. But the win was not to be. Jarren Duran singled home the winning run, also the 3rd run of the inning in the bottom of the 10th, as Boston walked it off with a 5-4 victory. For the Bronx Bombers, they have now dropped 4 in a row. The Phillies won their series with the Mets following another 5-4 game, and once again, Kyle Schwarber was in the mix. He hit his 30th home run of the season, a 2-run shot in the 7th that gave Philadelphia the lead. For the Amazons, they have now dropped 8 of their last 9 ball games. In Pittsburgh, Ryan O'Hearn belted 2 home runs, and he drove in 4 to help the Bucks avoid a sweep at the hands of the Reds. 9-4 the final. And in NASCAR, the in-season challenge began with Shane Van Gisbergen taking the checkered flag. The driver of the 97 car held off Chase Briscoe for the win. Ty Gibbs, Kyle Larson, and Christopher Bell rounded out the top 5. That is a look at sports.
All right, thank you, Randy. Still to come on the Noon Report for a Monday. Mega Heat Dome sets up shop. Supreme Court rules. And how safe is your church? We're talking to an expert on church security after this.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. As a recent Substack post from children's rights advocacy group Them Before Us accurately summarized, the decision that was issued 11 years ago in Obergefell v. Hodges, quote, did more than mandate marriage licenses for same-sex couples. In fact, what it did was redefine marriage in law, and redefining marriage redefines parenthood. Once husbands and wives become optional in marriage, mothers and fathers become optional in parenthood, eroding the right every child has to their own mother and father, end quote. Thus, the Obergefell decision marked yet a further stage in the evolution of one of the core ideas of the sexual revolution, that men and women are interchangeable, not only in rights, but also in social roles, and also even in reality itself. A legal decision of this magnitude inevitably will shape the cultural imagination, defining down the essential differences between men and women, husbands and wives, and mothers and fathers, as if those differences were mere cultural constructs. And ever since, we've been served up a narrative that the social innovation of so-called same-sex marriage is a settled matter both in culture and in law. But what if it isn't? A new poll conducted by the Decision Company of 1,200 conservative and moderate likely voters found that a significant majority believe, and I quote, children matter, mothers matter, fathers matter, and children's needs should come before adult desires, end quote. According to the data, the narrative that even social and political conservatives these days actually want so-called same-sex marriage and consider it to be settled law is actually unsubstantiated conjecture. As Josh Hammer, a senior editor-at-large at Newsweek and host of the Josh Hammer Show, put it, quote, this poll exposes the growing disconnect between elite cultural narratives and the convictions of conservative and moderate voters. Despite years of messaging from the media, academia, and corporate America, these voters continue to affirm a fundamental belief. Whenever possible, children should be raised by and connected to both their mother and father. At a time when the center-right is often portrayed as fractured, this survey reveals remarkable unity around a principle that should never have become controversial. The rights and needs of children deserve to come before adult desires, end quote. Among the findings of this survey is that 96% of these voters say it's important for a child to be raised with both an involved mother and an involved father. 82% agree that no child should be deliberately denied a mother or a father. 78% agree that when a child's needs conflict with an adult's desires, the child's needs should come first. 66% reject the claim that being raised by same-sex parents is no different for a child than being raised by an adoptive mother and father. And 63% of those surveyed agreed that children are harmed when they lose their mother or father to be raised in a same-sex household. Obergefell is not the first or only time the court has gotten such an important decision so wrong. And like in the past, the moral failure of something like Obergefell is an expression of bad anthropology. But also, like in the past, this is not a theoretical mess we've gotten ourselves in. For children everywhere, it's personal. We owe it to them to tell the truth. We owe it to them to oppose the lies. We owe it to them to convince as many people as we can of what is actually true. Learn more about this new study and how you can join the Greater Than campaign at greaterthancampaign.com. That's greaterthancampaign.com. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
Thank you, John. Outside we go. Weather where you live with meteorologist Ken McKinley.
Look for plenty of sunshine across the region through the afternoon. Warm temperatures well into the 80s. A couple of spots may hit 90 this afternoon. And tonight we'll watch the passage of a warm front, which for most areas will mean just a few clouds, but there might be a shower or thunder shower in some spots later tonight and during the morning tomorrow. Temperatures tomorrow are likely to be above 90 degrees in most locations and well into the 90s on Wednesday, probably on Thursday as well. The humidity will be elevated through this period of time also, so you're going to want to take some precautions if you're going to be outdoors for any length of time. Take frequent breaks and pay attention to your hydration.
All right, thank you, Ken. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price. Here's what's going on Monday, the 29th of June. In a 5-4 decision today from the U.S. Supreme Court, the justices ruled that states can count mail-in ballots after Election Day. At issue was a Mississippi law that permitted the counting of late-arriving ballots. The U.S. and Iran will hold peace talks tomorrow in Qatar after a weekend of skirmishes in and around the Strait of Hormuz. Mike Waltz is the U.S. ambassador to the UN.
The president's patience isn't going to last forever. Discussions are ongoing of how to get inspectors in and the other pieces that are focused on ensuring Iran never has a nuclear weapon.
The U.S. insists the Strait of Hormuz is open for business. Iran claims to have ownership of it. ABC's Selena Wang.
So what's clear from all of this is that it's going to be very hard to get traffic back to those pre-war levels, given the ongoing strikes that are happening there, as well as the dispute between the U.S. and Iran about what the MOU actually says.
The so-called Memorandum of Understanding was put to the test over the weekend after Iranian drones struck ships in the strait and the Islamic regime fired at U.S. targets in other Gulf states. Gas prices down 50 cents a gallon the past month. That should help fuel 4th of July travel. Experts predicting a record 72.2 million Americans will travel at least 50 miles from home this week. 3 firefighters are dead, 2 others wounded after battling a massive wildfire along the Utah-Colorado border. It's been extremely dry and hot there this summer, and much of that heat is now moving east.
Millions bracing for a holiday heat wave ahead of the 4th of July. Forecasters warning of dangerously hot conditions with record temperatures soaring throughout the week. 139 million people are under heat alerts.
NBC's Shaq Brewster says a mega heat dome will set up shop over the Northeast for the next several days, right until the end of the Independence Day weekend. Many of us will see daytime highs hovering around the century mark.
Yeah, it does get hot in the summer, but this is not a typical heat. We're talking about some real intense heat that folks are going to be dealing with as we get closer and closer to that 4th of July holiday.
Fox News meteorologist Adam Klotz says the worst of the heat will be Wednesday through Friday. Search and rescue teams continue to comb through the wreckage of collapsed buildings in earthquake-wrecked Venezuela. Correspondent Marcus Moore says it is a daunting task.
Some 60,000 buildings have either been damaged or destroyed because of these earthquakes. That's according to satellite data that was collected by researchers at Oregon State University. And it does give you a sense of the enormity of all of this. We don't know exactly how many people may be underneath the rubble.
The death toll is nearing 1,500. An estimated 50,000 remain missing. A couple from Brazil's become the first parents in that country to be convicted of a crime for homeschooling their kids. The mom and dad sentenced to 50 days in prison. A judge ruled their curriculum failed to include state-approved content. The parents are appealing the sentence. 70,000 Brazilians civilians homeschool their children. A Texas boy attacked by a shark in the Bahamas is crediting his 16-year-old brother for keeping him alive.
I definitely consider him as my hero as he stopped bleeding and saved my life.
That's 12-year-old Parker Roll, who says his brother Jack wrapped his leg for the 60-mile boat ride to the nearest hospital. That family was on an excursion to swim with sharks and thought they were among normally docile nurse sharks. But then a 10-foot-long reef shark latched on.
I didn't really feel it at first because there's just so much adrenaline.
Doctors say young Parker Roll should be walking again in 2 to 3 weeks, thanks to the heroic efforts of his older brother. Pennsylvania will be well represented at this week's Great American State Fair on the National Mall in Washington. It's to celebrate America's semi-quincentennial. Here's Family Life's Sarah Harnish.
Democrat Senator John Fetterman and Republican Dave McCormick built a coalition of state organizations, saying there was no way they were going to let the Commonwealth go unrepresented during our nation's 250th birthday celebration. Pennsylvania was initially going to skip the event, citing costs, but the senators made it work with private funding. The fair kicked off last week and runs through July 10th. Sarah Harnish, Family Life News.
Thank you, Sarah. Next at noon, a closer look at church security with Dr. Barry Young at Serving Watchmen. Our guest has more than 20 years' experience in law enforcement and talks to Family Life about how to protect your house of worship in the event of a mass casualty event. Here's more of our conversation. Since 1999, there have been over 1,700 violent church incidents, and the vast majority of these are preventable. I'm wondering if we could just start off by having you explain, when it comes to church security, what most concerns you?
The number one thing that concerns me about church safety is churches don't take it serious. CNN just came out, it was on the front page of CNN.com, the most dangerous hour in America, 11 a.m. Sunday morning.
Wow.
And then a month later, Fox News came out, and on their front page, it said in 2023, violent attacks in the church doubled last year. And I think it's interesting, rarely do Republicans and Democrats agree on anything. Yet the number one Democrat outlet, the number one Republican outlet, are both saying church violence in America is at a catastrophic level.
Yeah. You argue that when it comes to security, you have to become your own first responder. What does that mean?
So we live by a phrase. The Bible says in Proverbs 22:3, a wise man sees danger and prepares. And we live by this phrase, let's prepare and prevent, so we don't have to repair and repent. You know you're doing church security correctly when the church becomes more friendly, and you know you're doing church security incorrectly when the church becomes less friendly.
I know a lot of churches have security teams, but is it enough? I mean, that's the big thing. You argue there's a difference between having a church safety team and having a church safety ministry. In what areas are churches ill-equipped to deal with the threats out there today?
Well, I think, first of all, you nailed it. Our heartbeat is we don't train church security teams, we train church security ministries. I think there can be extremes. So one extreme is we're just going to trust God and we're not going to do any preparation. And then I think the other extreme is, well, we're going to have bouncers in God's house and be scary or intimidating. Our goal is to be loving, to be kind, but also, you know, Matthew 10:16 says, be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. And so I think the first thing churches make a mistake on is not being friendly. You know, what happens is, do criminals want to be seen or unseen? The moment everybody is greeted, we have many instances where a potential threat is greeted by a loving church member and they leave the church. Criminals simply don't want to be seen. Oftentimes when it comes to church safety, we forget one of the biggest cornerstones of church safety is protecting our children. The number one lawsuit forced against the American church is misconduct or mishandling of children.
That's a great point. And more so than even with schools, which kind of have a lock the doors, keep everyone out. In church, they want people to come in and be part of the community, and you want to be friendly and accepting and all of that. But, as a friend said to me once, you got to put your big city on sometimes and de-escalate situations before they happen. Lock doors. You mentioned the kids and the background checks with people who work with children. There is a lot of areas that are being missed when it comes to church ministry in the name of being that inviting kind of welcoming environment. Is that not the case?
I totally agree with that, and I want to laser focus on schools. So when we first started serving watchmen, we were focused on church safety, but what happened is public schools kept coming up to us. This last fall, we trained 21 schools in lockdown training, and an operative word I want is lockdown. So in a public school, if a public school receives federal dollars, 100% of staff are lockdown trained. And my question is, what percent of churches have lockdown trained and certified their kids ministry workers, their Sunday school teachers for children? And so I would say easily less than 1%. I understand why guns or physical force could be a controversial issue, but in our lockdown training, we teach 16 ways to lock a door. We teach how to verbally diffuse a situation. We teach how to professionally break a window. And the reason we do that, if there's a threat coming down the hallway, one of the highest ways to save your life and your loved ones and your children, break the window and get out of the building. So I believe one of the cornerstones of safe church training is lockdown training.
Yeah.
We want every church in America to have a comprehensive safety and security plan from the parking lot to the pulpit that includes everything from Band-Aids to bullets.
Yeah.
Now, I've been in law enforcement for 20 years. One thing we see in every violent attack, when seconds count, the police are minutes away. In 99% of violent incidents, by the time law enforcement arrives, the event is over. And so we know that violence in our country is not going down, it's going up. And so what we want to do is we want people to be safe. We want their futures, their families to be safe. And we believe that safety is everyone's responsibility.
Amen. That's Dr. Barry Young with Serving Watchmen, an expert on church security. Last year alone, folks, there were more than 650 mass shootings across this country. And finally at noon for a Monday,
Rubber ducky, you're the one. You make bath time lots
The world's largest rubber duck is returning to Western New York this weekend for the first time in a decade. From Friday, July 3rd through Sunday the 5th, that 6-story tall mama duck, as well as her 10-foot tall baby duck named Timmy, will be on display at Canal Side as part of Independence Day celebrations. The pair last paid a visit to Buffalo back in 2016. Nothing says happy birthday America quite like a giant duck. And that's our world, the world we live in. Monday, the 29th of June. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to The Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.